My book, Lost Station Circe, will be out this month, which is incredible. So, as part of processing that, I'm going to do another ranking video. Last time it was Paul Temple serials, this time something a little bit different. Something that all the cool kids are doing these days. The characters of Drakengard and its sister series, Nier. Drakengard and Nier are close to my heart because it was this quirky series of action role-playing games, created, directed and partly co-written by Yoko Taro, that influenced my taste for characters, story and just so many things. I cannot tell you in a cohesive amount of time how much I really like and love this series, but I do have opinions on its characters, who are a weird, often wonderful and always wacky lot. So, this is to rank them, and if any characters you think should be higher or lower end up in a lower or higher tier respectively, well, I can't really account for individual tastes. This is just my personal ranking. If you'd like to carry on listening to my stuff, you can check out the rest of my channel. If you want to support me, then you can buy either Lost Station Circe, whenever it releases this month, or you can buy its prequel, Starborn Vendetta, which is available now in ebook, hardback and paperback. So, let's go! Okay, here we are, the tier list. And partly because there are so many characters, partly because my opinion varies a lot, there are a lot of tiers here. S, A, B, C, D, E, F, you can see. So let's see how many characters end up in the F and how many of those characters will be from Drakengard 2, because let's face it, Drakengard 2 is notorious for being not the best. So the reason I'm doing this sort of to context is partly because I like this series, partly because I've got a book coming out and I need to do something, partly because this year, 2024, is the 20th anniversary of the Western release of the original Drakengard, which released in Western territories in 2004. So, starting off strong, we have Drakengard's original protagonist, Keiichi. Compared to every other lead character in this series, I really don't like him. He's a spin on the silent protagonist archetype, and I love how he basically analyses the concept of sort of the gamification of murder, but that makes him a bit shallow, so I think he's gonna live in the middle. That's still not a terrible place for a lead character to be in video games, let's be honest, especially from RPGs. Also, apologies for any ads that keep on popping up in the recording area of this whole thing, so, you know. Next is Angelus, the lead character of, well, not lead character, well, sort of lead character, the voice of Keiichi and his pact partner. Also, I'm not going to be ranking the pact partners mostly alongside this because they have barely anything to go by. They're basically composite characters with their human choices. I like Angelus. She's a bit shallow overall, but she's a great character. I mean, she's a bossy old lady who makes a romantic connection to a human, so she goes here. Sort of symbolic positioning. Next is Furiae, Keiichi's sister, goddess of the seals, and has very strong feelings for her brother, to put it mildly. I really like her as a character. And yeah, I'm going to put her next to Angelus because, especially in the ancillary materials, she gets a lot of extra development that really shows how tortured she is. And that's really cool for me. So, next up, Verdelay. I hate him as a character. He is just... I mean, I will give him credit that he's meant to be that completely useless. So, he's not going in the bottom tier, but he's going in E. I just really don't like him. Next is Inuart, Furiai's betrothed, and literally at one point insanely jealous of Keim. I think he goes alongside Keim, to be honest, because he's kind of a mirror and he's a bit of a wet blanket, but he's not terrible by any means, so there. Once again, suggestive positioning. Now we get to the three supporting characters, Ariosh, Leonard and Sere. Ariosh, she gets barely any development outside of the tragedy that is why she behaves the way she does, so I'm afraid she goes alongside Verdelais. Tier E. Leonard is a character who absolutely would not fly in today's gaming environment. He would be cancelled immediately. And he's also even more of a tragic character and gets a bit more development across the endings. And also, the thing about Drakengard 2, it gets a lot of flack, but it introduced weapon stories, and while the main story of Drakengard 2 is not as dark as the first one, the weapon stories can be, and it's heavily implied that Leonard, he has certain proclivities, and these indirectly caused the death of his brothers, and it's strongly hinted in his storyline, in the weapon story that he has in Drakengard 2, that he does not recover, and he isolates himself in shame. So I think, just for the gumption of having a character like that, just put him there. Sere. I loathe him as a character. He is just so annoying and so everything. Even his actions in Drakengard don't entirely redeem him, and in Drakengard 2 he's an absolute wet blanket. Meh. Mana. I really like her development. As a villain in the original Drakengard, she's great, and actually as a playable character in Drakengard 2, she's interesting because, you know, I mean, she's not handled as well as she might be, but I really like her. So, boop, A tier. The Black Dragon Legna. I mean, these are two characters that sort of cross over between Drakengards 1 and 2. Legna is more Drakengard 2 in terms of development, and I think he sits alongside Mana, because he's very interesting. He's a father figure and he's deceptive, but he's not, I don't see him as outright evil, so he can live alongside Mana. He's more of a tragic figure in my opinion. Noe. Again, rather an interesting character, not very well developed. I think he can live alongside Furiai and Angelus. And oh my goodness, the men are constantly getting under the women in their respective female counterparts in games in this list. I wonder if it's emblematic of anything. Eris. Sorry, she gets absolutely no development, bottom tier. Ulrich. I like him as a character a lot. He's interesting. But he doesn't really get that much. So even though he's a favourite of mine and potentially the first canonically gay character in the series, I think I'm going to have to put him next to Noe. Appropriate, considering they have so much chemistry. So, next is the four main villains, and I'm afraid most of these are going to be in the bottom tier. This one, and this one, because they really don't get much at all. Haj, this character, oh, well, by the way, this is Yaha, Zhangpu, and Gizmo. And Haj, I think she merits going a tier above, because she doesn't get a lot, but she's actually an interesting and quite tragic figure. Now we get on to the interesting stuff. Drakengard 3. It's love it or hate it in the fan base with this one. So 0. No contest. Our first S tier. I love her as a character. She's an absolutely takes no BS type. I really, really like her. And now we're getting into the part of the ranking where we probably won't get many lower tiers from now on. Although, Mikhail, I think he has to sit in C tier because I love his dynamic with Zero, but I mean, he's very one note. I mean, most of the cast of Drakengard 3, to be honest, are a bit one note, but he's even more one note than the others. And I think just for the sake of thoroughness, Michael should go next to him because he gets... Michael... Actually, no. Michael gets a bit more zest, so he go... No, oh, hold on. Okay, be fair, they're the same character, technically, so... Yeah, sorry. Next is Sister 1, and I really like her as a character. And she actually is basically Zero's mirror image, so... Boop, she can live alongside there. It's amazing how many male characters are down in the lower tiers. One thinks that Yoko Taro has a liking for female characters for writing them. Next, the intoners. Okay, just for how complex and tragic she is, 2 can go in the C tier. The others, I'm afraid they go in D tier because they have definite appeal and pathos to them, but they're not that great, to be honest. Next is Accord. I think she goes in S tier as well because I just love her. She's wonderful. She's a great foil for Zero. So we have our first 2 S tiers. And before we move on to these fine chaps, we get to Gabriella, and she goes in B tier. Because she's only present in the DLC, but I adore her interactions with the other intoners. It's just glorious. Next we have this lot, and okay. I have mixed opinions on this. Just in terms of personality, Cent goes in E tier. He is insufferable, but I get it. Decadus, I'm going to be honest, he goes in A tier. I don't know why, but I really, really like him. Octa, F tier. I'm sorry, his joke isn't even funny. And Dito goes alongside Cent because he is funny. And that's the thing, a lot of the Drakengard 3 characters are funny. Because that's the thing that Drakengard 3 was going for, it was sort of a comedy. So, yeah, okay. Next is Brother 1, who is developed across 2 titles, the game, where he gets barely anything, and the manga, Shin ni Itaru Aka. I think he goes in S tier, because he is a really interesting character across that whole span. Nero, his companion in Shin ni Itaru Aka, and now we're getting into manga territory here, which is a bit niche. Shin ni Itaru Aka, we have Nero, who I think merits a D tier because he's a bit one-dimensional but also really enjoyable. Nero's sister, oh dear, E tier. She's an absolutely wonderful manipulative creature, and I'm afraid most of the rest of the characters here. This is Footy Eye's servant, barely gets anything. Most of the lords also go here. There's one of the lord's assistants also goes here. Oh dear, I may have to split this video into 2 parts. Oh dear. Well, let's see. Now we have Cerula, I think she's called. I think she merits a D tier because she's an interesting character. Partition, I think, also goes in D because, again, quite interesting character. And it's interesting that we get... Oh, by the way, these characters, the ones I'm highlighting here, come from the prequel manga Utahime 5, including this one who goes in E tier because he doesn't really get much. And most of them are basically very one-dimensional characters, unfortunately, so hey-ho. Oh, now we move on to the good stuff. Now we are in Nier territory. I wonder if the chart will hold out, because, oh boy. So, we have Father Nier and Brother Nier. I think they both go in A tier because they're very relatable characters and it's fascinating how they play with the concept of protagonists. but they do it from different angles. And even though the brother is technically canonical, you know, I prefer it. Next we have Yona. F tier. I really don't like her. Actually, I wonder if you can actually extend it. Yes, you can! Wonderful. Right, next is this baby. Grimoire Weiss, who, just for the sheer banter, B tier, just wonderful. I mean, he gets, I don't like him as much as a character, so, but hey ho. Following on from that, Kaine. Oh, Kaine. I absolutely love her. She's wonderful. She's amazing. She's marvellous. She's S tier material, no question. I will not be accepting objections at this time, and if you object, pistols at dawn. I won't need a backup, in Red's words. Emile. I think he goes in A tier, because, I mean, I know a lot of people will say, but you should put him in S tier, but across the whole series of things, I felt more of a connection to Kaine than I did to Emile, to be honest. Deviler and Popular. I think they both go in B tier, because they are, you know, they're characters. They are characters. And they're developed very nicely, but it's still, I mean, their final thing when, I mean, you know that scene at the end of Nier. No one stops. It's way too late to stop. That just is so powerful. And actually Nier is one of the few stories that ever actually truly made me cry. But, yeah. So, moving on to other characters. So, oh, by the way, this does not mean any of these characters are, I mean, aside from the final two tiers, I don't think any of these characters are inherently bad. But it's still a matter of preference. So, the Shadow Lord, the main antagonist. I think he goes in C tier, because he doesn't get a huge amount of development. But he is a really impactful villain. I think he stands alongside 2 with how tragic he is. These two. Fira, I think, goes in B tier, because I really like her. But the King of Facade, I know he's a very friendly character and all that, but just because of what he does in the story, C tier. Louise, a character that was first introduced in ancillary material and later incorporated into the Nier remaster, Nier Replicant 1.22474487139. She, I think, goes in C tier, because, I mean, later you'll see that I don't do all the individual villains this way, but yeah, I think she goes there, because I really feel her, you know? The Shades. And this is not just the Shades collectively as a group, the Gestalts, but also the individual bosses we face, like Hook, Wendy, Rock, Khalil. They all go in B tier because they are incredible characters. Just wow, oh my heart. Now we can move on to really difficult territory, because I really like most of the characters in this one, Nier Automata. Oh boy! Well, I think there's no contest that these 3 characters, A2, rather 2B, 9S and A2, they all go in the top tier. They are all S tier characters. I love them to bits. Well, what's happened? Oh, good. Next is the Commander. She doesn't really get much. I mean, in the anime, she seems to be getting, I mean, as I'm talking now, the anime's second season, second cour, is broadcasting, and she appears to be getting some very interesting development, so I think I can give her a bit of leeway and put her in the C tier. Oh, the Operators. I think they also go in C tier, because, I mean, they're a bit shallow if you don't do their quest line, but when you do, oh boy. The Resistance Leader, Anemone. She doesn't really get a huge amount across all the media, so, you know, she can join Partition and the others in D tier. Not necessarily bad. As I said, these top 5 tiers are not necessarily bad characters. These are, I mean, down here are the ones I reserve for ones I typically think of as bad characters. Oh, and yeah, for anybody who's wondering why I put Yona in here, I know she's meant to be one of those characters that you care for deeply, but I just didn't care for her at all. So, okay, the pods. Pods 0, 4, 2 and 1, 5, 3. I think they also go in D tier because they are great characters, but they're only great characters in relation to the people they're around and with. They're not the best characters on their own for most of Nier Automata. Pascal. B tier. He's incredible. Just his story and his everything is great. Adam and Eve. Although they're a bit like Devilo and Popola, they're a pair. I'm afraid I'm going to have to put them in D tier because they don't get a huge amount. I mean, the anime throws an interesting spin on their relationship, but not enough to save them. Sorry. The machine life forms. Again, I'm grouping these as a body, like the shades, like the gestalts. I think I would put them in C tier because they're not as impactfully written, created, curated as the gestalts, but they're still good characters. The Red Girls. Again, I'm afraid I'm going to have to put them in D tier because... Actually, no, C tier. I'll put them in C tier because they're similar to the machine life forms, and actually the Red Girls, or Red Girl, gets more development in Nier Reincarnation, so interesting stuff there. And now we get two more groups. The Yoha Girls from the original stage play and the Yoha Boys. The girls... I think I'll put the girls in C tier and the boys in D tier. Because I find I relate to the girls more than the boys in terms of what they do, what their struggles are. Cactus is a character who from the same media as the Yoha Boys, and I think also he goes in D tier. He is one of the few characters out of this whole roster to actually survive things, which is a minor miracle. Lily. She's not anime exclusive per se, but she does get a lot of stuff in the anime, but she's more or less a substitute for Anemone. So unless she gets some interesting development in the anime, again she goes in D tier. And now we move on to the really big chunk of the list, which is the characters from Nier Reincarnation. I think Theo and Lavenza, actually they go in two tips on top of each other. Theo goes in A tier because I don't particularly like her child character thing, but I do really like her as a character. And Lavenza, who is just the truest friend, absolutely incredible. There. I wonder what does this say about my choice of characters, this assembly line from the S tier so far. Okay, these two, Gale and Demos, and I can't promise to remember all the names of these characters because oh boy. But anyway, these two definitely go in the B tier because oh my heart. Oh my heart. Right. This lady. C tier. She's a bit shallow. Argo. Again, C tier. He is really enjoyable, but, you know, not as into dads. Akeha. B tier, no question. She's incredible. Sorry if all of these are starting to get rather short, but, you know, right. The two androids. I think they can live as a pair in D tier because, you know, they're great characters, but they're not much explored beyond that. This chap, you know, I really didn't like him that much. So unfortunately I'm going to have to do a splitting up. So this one goes in E tier. in the sort of okay but not really good characters, and this one goes in the C tier. So, because I really like him, I like his shtick. Noelle, I think she lives in D tier, because I don't know why people like her so much, because even with her ancillary content, she's a bit flat compared to a lot of the other characters from Nier Reincarnation. Carrier, great villain, not much development, but still a great villain. Blah. C tier, I think. Oh, these two, the siblings, Hina and Yuzuki. I think these both go in S tier because their story is just heartbreaking and incredible in how it's written and presented. It's just amazing. These two, I'm afraid they have the Papa and Dark Mama. I'm afraid they're going to have to go down here because they don't really get much. They're very shallow in comparison even to Carrier. Now, the Witch Girl. I think the Witch Girl and the monster go in C tier together. And here's the thing. In the final arc, in the sort of second arc of Nier Reincarnation, there's a theme of paired stories. So, with the AI, I think they also go in C tier, to be honest. Okay. And now we get the Sailor and the Fortune Teller. B tier, I think, because their story just was so impactful. It was heartbreaking. Mama, aka Pod 006, A tier. I mean, she's incredible. I mean, it's amazing. I did not think she was a pod, to be honest. So that revelation just came completely out of nowhere. 10H. I think, combined with everything, with all her appearances across media, not just Nier Reincarnation, but everything else, she can live in S tier. And the final two characters who appeared in the Nier Remaster and also the Nier Reincarnation, him and her, the administrators, human-crafted quantum life forms. Him, I think, lives in D tier. No, or rather, no, not D tier. He lives in E tier, I'm afraid, because we get barely anything on him. And, I mean, even with the short story in the new English version of Grimoire Nier, even with the stuff that we know about him from Nier Reincarnation, he's still a bit flat. Whereas her goes in B tier because, oh boy, the resolution to her story is amazing. No question. Just wow. And that's it. I cannot believe I actually managed to do that. This tier list was a time in some places, just thinking about it before I actually got round to doing it. I honestly didn't think the S tier would be bulging up towards its upper edge. A tier is rather sparse in comparison, whereas all the other tiers are either full or double layered, especially C tier. I feel like, and this isn't even saying that these characters, any of these characters are inherently bad, it's just how shallow they can be. Most of the antagonists in Drakengard 2 are written in a very shallow way. Just, you know, one of those things. And Non-Utilities has done a pop-up. I cannot believe it. This stupid thing. Okay, so here's my tier list. Yeah. I guess that shows my tastes. Oh boy. And that's it. That's the ranking. That's the video, I guess. I'm sorry if some of the characters that you thought should be in the top tier ended up in the bottom tier. I will not be apologising. And yes, I know I missed a couple of characters, but it kind of shows that I probably would have put them in the bottom tier anyway, because I think his name was Jacob in Nier Replicant. I just didn't remember him when I was collating this list. Compared to all the others, compared to the Lords of the Land from Utahime 5, compared to Nero and Nero's sister from Shini Itaro Aka compared to all the characters featured in Nier Reincarnation, Jacob just wasn't there, and I think that's enough to put him down in the bottom tier. So, I hope you enjoyed this bit of nonsense. Once again, my next book, Lost Station Circe, will be out this month. Oh my goodness, it's incredible that it's happening. If you want to catch up, this whole thing is part of the Cluster Cycle. It's a science fiction space opera pantology. If you want to jump in, you can jump in anywhere. I designed the series so you wouldn't need to start from the beginning and work your way through to the end. So if you like Lost Station Circe, then do pick up Starborn Vendetta, or vice versa. Yeah, sure. If you want to catch up with more of my content, you can check out the rest of my channel, you can check out my website, and hear you next time. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, in the words of Drakengard, well, sort of, thank you for watching!